Let's go. That's what it said. That's what we're going to do. I love the new intro, Brian. I'm just going to throw it out there. Good stuff, my friend. But we are here. It is a Monday here at Irish Breakdown. I am Vince D'Addario, and I am the football analyst. That's my title. I'm the football analyst here.
Wait a minute, what?
I was like, whoa, he's fired. Bye. No. I'm the football analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. That guy over there is Brian Driscoll. He's the publisher. He is the publisher, plus like 13 other hats that he wears here at irishbreakdown.com. And
you get used to that when you coach Division III football. You understand that, right?
That's a very good point.
These D1 coaches have like one job.
Right.
One year I was the administrative assistant head coach. I was the video coordinator. I was the recruiting coordinator. I was the pass game coordinator, and I was the wide receivers coach.
Preach.
And because our head coach coached quarterbacks, and he would watch TV shows in the middle of the day, I ended up half the time coaching the quarterbacks too. Wow. So, you get used to it when you coach at that level. So,
wow.
1AA is not a whole lot different, coach at that level too. So, a lot of hats. But that's why I love what I do, man. I hear a lot of fun, including making a new video intro.
I know. Rock and roll to that.
That's a lot of fun. I was pumped to myself that I could actually figure out how to do it.
I would have been clueless. So, it's great. Yeah, see, Alex, he noticed. Mason, Here we go. Jacob. Nice intro from Dynasty ISP. Alex says new countdown clock. Intro is fire. See, people are on board, right. Baby.
Love it. But you know what I like even more than that?
What's that?
Talking football.
Yeah, baby. So yesterday, if you didn't catch our show last night, if you just assumed we were going to talk about the Navy film, please check it out because we had a great talk.
That was a fun show.
Yeah, that was so much fun. We talked about the college football playoff and everything that went down, how it affects Notre Dame, et cetera, et cetera. So please go check that one out. I cut it up for everybody, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can just watch bits and whatever. But check it out because it's good stuff. But today we are going to break down the Brian Kelly press conference because there is just a boatload of information to talk about. And then if we have time, we'll get into a little bit of college football stuff. But it's primarily going to be about the ramifications of some of the things that were talked about in the Brian Kelly press conference. And the first thing is not the biggest. The first topic we're going to talk about is Kyle Hamilton. No word on whether he's going to play on Saturday or not, which is interesting. I will let you take it from here. But no, he's not out. He's not in. He's in limbo right now.
Yeah, and Brian Kelly also said that if Kyle Hamilton gets cleared on Saturday, he's going to play.
That's what he was talking about. Okay, because I tuned in a little bit late. He was talking about Kyle.
Yeah. Somebody asked him, somebody made a comment if he's cleared Thursday, would he be allowed to practice? And Kelly responded with, if he's cleared, would he be able to play? And Kelly responded with, if he's cleared Saturday, he's going to be able to play.
Which is such an honest answer. True. I appreciate that because
and he chuckled but he's like, come on, guys. Like if Kyle Hamilton gets, sorry, you missed the Thursday deadline, All-American. But what he did say about Kyle is they're still unsure. They're running more tests. They got the MRI back, but they're running more tests. My understanding, based on Kelly's comments combined with things that I've learned from sources, it's a push coming from Kyle's family. That leads me to believe that side of it, this part is projection, right? So this next part is projection. What we just talked about is what Brian Kelly said, which is that they're just running more tests. And I believe he mentioned, I thought I heard him say that something about the family, which is, to me, I'm all for the family pushing to make sure they've exhausted every test just to make sure he is cleared, not just a normal,
absolutely.
Okay, that's fine. My understanding from talking to sources is that I would imagine that they're leaning towards him not playing anymore, the family side, unless everything comes back like really clean. So I think that's what Notre Dame is going through now, is getting all the tests done, as many as possible on his knee, back, all the things that are ailing him, to try to get that part of it figured out. So we'll discuss that at a later time whenever a decision is made. There's no need for me to give my opinion on that
because there hasn't been a decision yet. Like
right now,
officially,
we'll discuss it when a decision is made. But as far as what we know that they're doing now, that the family is pushing for every test possible to make sure how his body is, no problem with that.
Right.
No problem with that at all.
Because they don't want him to come back early when he still might be kind of injured. It can make it worse.
Right.
You don't want that. And I get that. You want him to be 100% healthy.
Right.
I get that too. and I don't necessarily have an
You
issue
want to at
with
least
that.
be in a position where you can feel confident that
Right.
him playing is not going to subject him to further injury. And now, look, playing football always subjects you to
Of
injury. If
course.
you don't want to get hurt, don't play football anymore.
But not something to exacerbate
Correct.
a current injury.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Like
and so,
rushing Kevin Austin back from a foot injury last year.
Correct.
That kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Where you got him back too soon. He shouldn't have come back when he did. You put too much on him, and then bam, which just sometimes that happens. I mean, he was cleared medically and all that, and sometimes it happens. So
yeah, and so, but I'm cautiously optimistic that they're saying if he the vibe that we're getting is if he's healthy, he could play.
Right. And if the family was just, and here's the thing, I think they're leaning towards him not playing again. Right. But if the family was just like, you know what, it's done, they'd already decided. It would have already been decided and announced, right? There's no need to continue having tests if he's definitely not playing anymore. So in some regards, it's a good thing that they're pushing for as many tests as possible, because at least there's still an avenue for him to return, which is what I think he should do if he's
hugely important,
cleared to play, just like every other player that wants to be in the NFL who's playing through injuries and things like that is doing. So, obviously we'll get a better sense as we get through the week. I'll talk to all my sources every day as best I can to try to figure out what's going on. But I'll be honest with you, I was expecting different news today, and this is a good thing. I was honestly expecting them to come out today and say he's not playing. And because that would have been the answer. If the family was saying he ain't playing anymore, that's what Kelly would have said. No, he's not cleared this week. Because what they would probably do if Kyle decides to just not play anymore, there's no way Kyle just leaves the team, in my opinion. I'd be shocked by that.
He'd be on the sideline doing.
They would just not publicly clear him,
right?
Even though they know he's cleared, it's just they would do that to protect him.
Of course,
you know what I mean. Which honestly, they should. As long as he's still with the team, that's exactly what they should do.
Yes, no question.
There's no need to say that to then create the firestorm of, is he quitting on his team? Why is he more important than his other teammates who are playing with injuries that want to play in the NFL and all that kind of stuff? You save that conversation for later when it comes out that he chose not to play. So the fact that they just didn't come out and say he ain't playing this weekend, isn't playing this weekend, tells me that there's still a glimmer of hope that both sides are open to him coming back.
Right. I'll take that glimmer.
Really
I'll take the glimmer as opposed to just a complete shutdown. So, and I understand both sides. I do. The passionate fan in me, of course, wants him back. It makes the team better. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But I also understand he's got about 35 million reasons to be cautious.
Yep. So moving on to Avery Davis.
Yes, Avery Davis.
That's the other bit of news.
And this is big news. And look,
not surprising, unfortunately.
We all saw it live. And Brian and I both said it appeared that type of an injury kind of got twisted up.
Explain what you mean, that type, because we did discuss it before the show.
Yeah, so it was a non-contact injury. I mean, nobody hit him, nobody rolled up on him or anything like that, and you could see his foot kind of get caught in the turf a little bit, and the way his knee kind of jerked, that's usually an ACL, and that's what it ended up being.
The hope is that it's not everything.
Right, of course.
That was mine.
Because an ACL anymore in 2021 is completely rehabable within within 4 months, 4 to 6 months in that neighborhood. So he'll be ready to go.
10, 15 years ago, he's out for this year and part of next year.
Absolutely.
Right now, it's at least he could come back and play. And so he's got some decisions, because Brian Kelly did say that Avery has a 6-year option.
I would love to have him back.
And we'll discuss it a little more as we kind of get into some of this stuff with his thing, which we're going to that's exactly the next thing we're going to do. Then we're going to talk about some of the other comments afterwards. But
sure.
A week ago, I'd have said there's no reason for Avery Davis to come back. None.
Right.
Because he is what he is as a player, right?
For sure.
I mean, he is what he is. And I like what he is. But fifth-year senior, you're a team captain, you're a good football player and all that kind of stuff. There's no need to come back. That changes now because of the injury, because he was already sort of a borderline, was going to need a really good combine period to jump into the draft, in my opinion. Sure. I think he's draftable, but like as maybe a day 2, early day 3 guy, he was going to need some work, right? He was going to need to show that he's got 4.4 speed, that kind of thing, right? Which he does. Because he just doesn't have the production because of the way they use the slots, which It can be frustrating at times.
And the fact that he also moved to 14 different positions, and he just now is really settled in on receiver, right? I mean,
Well,
he didn't have a chance
but
for a lot
the
of
reality
positions.
is they should have used him more. He has 27 catches through 9 games. I'm sorry, he should be throwing the ball 2 more, but different conversation for a different day. The production's not there for him to just be, oh yeah, he's draftable. It's more he's got to he's did some nice things. He worked out at the pro day last year, if you remember, with Ian Book. He was going to need a good pro day. He was going to need a good combine to really to up his profile, and that's out now. He's not going to be healthy to start the season. That kills his draft value. So if there's room, and good Lord, there's room at receiver
there's
now.
So much room.
He's gonna. I would hope he would come back, which is huge for Notre Dame if he can come back 100% next year.
Agreed.
Because he's a good football player.
Right.
Really good football player. And
they're
going to lose some leadership from this football team.
Yeah,
I don't think Kyron Williams comes back. That's just 100% my opinion, right? I don't think he comes back.
I would advise him not to.
Right. Jack Cohn is not going to be back. There's going to be some leadership gone from this football team. If you can get a guy like Avery Davis, former quarterback, 6th-year senior, captain, he'll be a 2-time captain.
Right.
That's going to really take some of that leadership burden off the shoulders of Tyler Buckner or Drew Pine, whoever the starting quarterback is next year.
Sure. They just worry about being the quarterback.
That's right. You just worry about doing your job, make the calls. Avery can give the pep talks. Avery can rally guys. Avery can handle all that. You just go do what you need to do.
Right.
So that was certainly a good to hear that Brian Kelly did bring that up. I would imagine it's at least going to have to be considered. It's not going to be considered right now by the family. They need to worry about getting his surgery and getting him healed.
Absolutely.
Beginning the rehab. And because they won't, to me, a lot of times you don't. And if there's any, and I know we have some doctors, but if there's any that specialize in this, my understanding is the MRI can tell you certain things, but whenever you open a person up, there's always a potential that there's something there that doesn't show up on the MRI or, you got to make sure the surgery goes well, all those type of things. But with Dr. Radigan, I mean, he's considered one of the best in the business. Yeah. So that's a good thing for all Notre Dame's players who are having surgeries is if it's not Dr. Radigan doing the surgery, he will go find the best in that particular thing to either be there. Like I remember there was an injury to an offensive lineman recently where I believe Dr. Radigan performed the surgery, but he brought in a specialist who specialized in that to be there during the surgery just to make sure if that was needed. First class guy.
I love that guy so much.
He comes
on. He comes on the show that we do during pregame about, I don't know, once every 3 weeks or so, just to kind of give a rundown and talk. And he is amazing. Like that guy is. I mean, he's a former player. For those that don't know, he's a former Notre Dame football player. His son is a walk-on. As part of that podcast that they do. And I mean, he's obviously done the right thing in raising his kids, and he's a great doctor and he's a great man. So yeah, I agree with you.
So what Brian Kelly said in the press conference is the first thing is obviously Lorenzo Styles moves inside, and that's obvious. I mean, no brainer. Lorenzo can play that. There's no doubt about that. The interesting thing is gives you a little more size at receiver now because Lorenzo's bigger than Avery, and then you've got Braden Lindsay outside. Braden's a little taller than Avery, not bigger but taller. He noted that you could move, you could do some things where you put Kevin Austin at X, which kind of spells Braden Lindsay and all that, and which you need to do because Braden Lindsay's not an every down player, as we've been saying since the summer.
We've talked about that for a long time.
He talked about that would then trigger Deion Colsey to play more in the W. I think Deion's getting better and better every week, which is great. So imagine what's great what happens when guys actually get to play. You get to learn from your mistakes and all that, which you can only do when you play. Then he also talked about using Michael Mayer in the slot more, which is a plus, and then of course Kyron. So those are the things Brian Kelly talked about, Vince. I want to discuss two things now. I want to discuss, we're going to kind of move on for this particular topic. We're going to move past what Brian Kelly said, and we're going to talk about what we want to see and what we think about the receiver position this year and next based on this Avery injury. Yeah. Before we do, I just want to get a couple super chats here real quick.
Yes.
John Nestler said, just joined IB site this morning. He did.
Boom.
He signed up with an annual membership. I used to have rivals years ago, but thrilled to be part of the family. Thanks, Brian and Vince, and we're thrilled to have
John.
You as part of the family, John.
So, welcome, John.
Thank you for that very, very much. And yes, he did sign up this morning. I'm going to put the link in there again because that actually seemed to be helpful to people It's as opposed to having to remember the boards.com and all that other kind of stuff. So I'll put that in at the bottom for people that want to join. But we have another super chat from Clint Duggar. Don't get live too often, but I still watch every show. Love you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Clint.
Thanks, Clint. Appreciate that. And I'm glad you could be part of the live show today. So that's good too. So Vince, I want to talk first about what I think we need to see more from Notre Dame.
So he never mentioned bringing somebody over to the wide receiver group, or
he did not,
because he hinted around at it post game.
He did not. Okay. My thought would be, number one, if that move was being made, it was going to be a depth move. I didn't see, but I also wonder if part of it was he just in his head's thinking they're going to move Xavier Watts over, and I can name 3 people that want no part of Xavier Watts moving back to offense.
One of them, Xavier Watts.
Marcus Freeman, Chris O'Leary, Xavier Watts.
Well, he made it pretty clear that it wasn't going to be, like he said, Xavier's integral part of the defense. We hope to, he made it pretty clear, I think, that obviously was not going to be the case. Yeah. So that's good.
So that was good. I was glad to see that.
Yes.
Couple other things to me. So as I look at it, I think the first thing is this is why. I remember when we were talking this summer about all the receivers that left the program. And then because they lost, 4 over the summer, right? Micah Jones left. Jay Brunell left. Jordan Johnson left. And I think there was Kendall Abdur-Rahman. Could really use Kendall Abdur-Rahman right about now. Well, he never played. They got Avery Davis. No big deal. And then you then lose Lawrence Keys because you didn't feel it was important enough to treat him the right way to make him feel like part of the team. You lose him. And normally I hate it when players leave their team in the middle of the year. Hate it. That was one where I completely understood. Anytime a coach goes to the point where he's no longer being truthful to you,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
You got to go, right?
Yeah.
Or not that you got to go, but I understand you going. So, and every single time, the response from the people that just wanted everything is awesome, just say, hey, you know what? He wasn't going to help. He's no good. They already got this guy. They're okay there. Well, those things pile up, right? And now you're in a situation where you lose Joe Wilkins, you lose Avery Davis, and now you have 5 healthy scholarship receivers.
Correct.
You have the veterans are actually is it 5? You have Kevin Austin.
Correct.
You have Braden Lindsey, healthy. Okay. So the 2 guys that have the biggest injury history, the last 2 veterans left. Okay. And then you have the 3 freshmen.
Right.
That's it.
That's 5. And
that's it.
Jaden Thomas.
Kelly talked about him today. Yeah.
Did he talk about him? Because I had heard that they.
Yeah, he just said that he'd been on scout team and he's up now to help with depth. Okay. But he's been in and out all year. I mean, he's been banged up all year. So that's it. That's your at the University of Notre Dame, because you lost 5 players during the offseason. This is where you're at. And so the problem that has existed here for a while now has truly come to fruition this season. And if this isn't the wake up call that Brian Kelly needs, I don't know what else to do.
Sure.
I don't know what else to say or what else to do about this. So it's a problem, but hey, it is what it is, right? So let's talk about what needs to happen today. And so first and foremost, I look at this and say, clearly Lorenzo Styles to the slot is a good move, because you can't just eliminate 11 personnel. But here's the reality. When you have 5 scholarship receivers, one of them has not played a meaning. I don't think Jaden Thomas has played yet this year. I don't think. He might have got in the 4th. I mean, I don't even think what 4th quarter game could he have got in. I mean, the Wisconsin's game is the only one that was really a blowout. I don't even know if he's played yet this year, which adds to my frustration when you think about how many teams with a losing record Notre Dame has on their 9-team resume, that they don't have any games that they could have just, until Saturday to blow a team out. But anyway, he's just not really going to be a guy that I think steps in just automatically and can give you 20 snaps a game, right? So 11 personnel is still something you can use, but it's not something you can use as your primary, as the primary part of the offense in regards to a volume standpoint. Does that make sense, Vince?
Yeah,
Like, you're still going to use it.
absolutely.
It's still a very important part of what you do, but I don't know if you
Sure.
can, use it for 75, 80% of the snaps like they have at times this season. You still use it, but maybe it's only 20 snaps of 11 personnel this now.
Yeah.
I think obviously the other option is, you could use Michael Mayer more in the slot, but that's where the decision has to get made.
Right.
How do you get Michael Mayer in the slot? And there's two ways to do it. One is to go 12 personnel, put George Takis in the game or Mitchell Evans in the game and use them as the number 2 tight end. Right. The other one is to go 21 personnel.
Right.
And I think that's the direction Notre Dame needs to go. To me, because you have, and Kelly talked today too, he talked about Chris Tyree, how the turf toe thing, it's something he's battling back from. It's something he dealt with in high school that cost him time. But he talked about how, if you remember the play on Saturday, they brought a corner blitz, and the only running back to step up and pick that up on Saturday was Chris Tyree. Stepped up and drilled the guy. And Kelly talked about how that was important for them and for Chris.
Sure.
Because to block like that, because he didn't just catch the guy, he struck the guy. You remember the play I'm talking about?
He put him on his back too, didn't he? I mean, it was yeah, right.
And Kelly talked about how that requires you to really plant and drive off your feet like any blocker. And how that was sort of that thing in Chris's mind. It was like, okay, I'm fine. And for them, it was the thing that shows he's fine. So you've got Chris Tyree coming back. Logan Diggs has played great football. You've got Kyron Williams, and you have Audric Estime. To me, 3 of those guys can catch the ball really well. 2 of those guys can catch the ball outside. Now, there's a lot of talk from people about, well, just move Chris Tyree to the slot. That only works as a sort of a compliment to him being a running back, because Kyron Williams could be a slot receiver. He could be a legitimate slot receiver. That he knows how to run routes. He knows how to catch the ball down the field. Chris can do some things, but I don't know if Chris is a natural slot receiver. I mean, there's a slot receiver requires a lot of precision. You got to know how to get off jams. You got to know how to react to buzzing linebackers. You've got to know how to, my stem starts here. This guy works there. I got to react my stem this way to either dip inside or push him outside, understand the whole pass concept and all that kind of stuff. You just can't plug a guy, put him at slot and say, hey, that you haven't been playing receiver all year. You're going to be fine. We're going to go.
You'll be good. You'll be good.
Now can you do that at times? Absolutely. There are things you can do with him in the slot. There's quick game things you can do. There's screen games you can do. There's jet sweep things you can do. There's things you can do, wheel route. There's some creativity that you can have, but it's going to have to be a package for him in the slot. It's not him being a slot receiver now.
Correct.
I also don't necessarily want Chris Tyree, blocking out in space and stalk blocking, because the problem is when you get a guy that, like, stalk blocking on the perimeter requires work and understanding, because that's a position where knees get rolled up on all the time.
Sure.
Receivers practice that stuff and they understand how to handle that, right? It comes from experience. And so to me, it's about finding a niche for him there, also using Kyron Williams in the slot there, and then using Audric Estime and Logan Diggs as running backs with those guys. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be completely opposed if they just wanted to say, hey, we need to find ways to get Michael Mayer a breather without going to the 12 and 13 personnel, because if they don't know that formation group just doesn't really work effectively against any good team yet, then there's no hope, right? They've got to be able to look at that and say, no, it's not going to work. I mean, I would not be opposed, Vince, if they went a couple plays of 30 personnel, meaning get Michael Mayer out. Again, meaning, because you're trying to get 5 to 10 snaps of him on the sideline to catch, get a breather, get some wear and tear off of his legs, right? It's not about taking Michael Mayer out for any reason other than like when you'd sub him out.
Right.
And instead of saying we're going to go to George Takis, who we just won't throw the ball to, right? They just refuse to do that. They did it once. He made a good catch. George can play, but they just, they're not going to use him. Mitchell Evans is a good kid and he's a freshman, but he's not ready yet for that kind of role. And he's just not. You look at the guys, Logan Diggs, Chris Tyree, Kyron Williams are all better players than anybody else that could possibly fill Avery Davis's spot other than Lorenzo Styles.
Right.
So to me, I would even get creative with that. Now, when I talk 30 personnel, I mean, there's so much you could do. It sounds like people laugh. You ever watch Oklahoma State? You ever watch Oklahoma State back in the early 2010s in the mid, when they were like really a dynamic offense? They would line up in that diamond personnel. Now, they would have a receiver there, right? They'd have 2 backs and a receiver. Well, with the type of running backs Notre Dame has, guys can catch the ball. Why not do that? I mean, because you're now throwing some of people that they don't know what the heck, they don't know what to do.
Exactly.
You know, they're going to be unprepared for that, and you have some fun with it. You know, there's things you can do out of it. You can line up in 30 personnel in a diamond formation. A diamond formation is like a pistol, right? So the quarterback and the tailback, it's a pistol for them. But what you have is to each side of the quarterback, you have a running back. It's called a diamond formation, and then outside receivers. You could do that. You could line up the next play with in a normal shotgun with a back to each side, and another back, the third back in the slot. It could be Kyron, it could be Tyree, and then the next play you could line up with Audric Estime or Logan Diggs as your single back, and you have Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree in the slots. You can do all that without rotating personnel, and they can effectively do those kind of things. So
absolutely,
the reality is this an ideal to lose Avery Davis? Heck no. Great leader, great kid.
Yeah.
Heart hurts for him because, you know, all these kids are great kids and all that kind of stuff. But like his story is so unique and what he sacrificed. I hate to see this happen to him.
I agree.
But and not that I ever like am happy that a kid gets injured, but it just some sting a little bit more.
Absolutely.
It was that way as a coach as well. But this one stings for Avery.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the point is, as a football team, you got to move forward. Hey, he's out. It doesn't mean that it's not like roll him off the field. And we're going to keep going because we don't care, right? It's just he's out. Here we go. And so to me, that's something that I want to see. I want to see some of that. I would even do that at a 31 personnel, Vince, that you went to earlier, because then you could put Michael Mayer outside.
Exactly.
There's just so many things you could do. And if you did it with Audric Estime as one of your three backs, you could then line him up outside in like a wing and use him to block like you did earlier.
Yeah, I think that's untapped. Like I'm surprised they actually haven't done that because that they were they went to it.
You got to be creative, Vince, right? It's kind of like the only thing holding back from Notre Dame being more explosive and being more versatile and creative is their lack of creativity.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I hope that Tommy Rees comes into the office yesterday because it starts yesterday and today. And he's like, you know what, man? We're out this guy. We're going to have some fun. Right. Because here's what every coach should do. Every offensive coach should do when they meet on Sunday or Monday, start going over the game plan. Who do we have to get the football to this weekend? And they're going to, and a lot of times, like place I've been, it's like you kind of list your top 5 playmakers. You got to make sure that in some way they're all, if you start doing that, you're going to go, I mean, there's going to be a lot of running backs in that group. You know what I mean? Like, okay, Kevin Austin at receiver. I don't know if there's another guy that I would put in there. Not that Lorenzo and Lindsey can't do some things. Okay, Mayer. All right. Kyron, no brainer. Okay, who's your next? Tyree. Okay. Diggs. Okay. And then you talk about Lindsey. I mean, there's some things you can do to where even with all those injuries, you still got some dudes there. Right?
Absolutely.
So now the only thing that's going to limit you is your own lack of creativity and your own inability to install it. I mean, to me, I would look at this as fun. I would look at this as encouraging. Yeah. I would say, hey, there's not a lot of film of Deion Colsey. There's not a lot of film of Audric Estime. There's not a lot of film of 30 personnel. And people, I'm not joking when I say that. I'm not joking at all. In today's college football, if you don't know how in a sort of an everything has gone wrong situation to be able to use the kind of running backs that Notre Dame has beyond just rotating them in with each other, then you don't understand the exciting aspects of today's modern football.
Absolutely agree.
And the things that the evolution of the game allow you to do. And so to me, the only thing holding them back is their own lack of creativity and ability to install it. I mean, and again, you don't do it all in one game, right? You find, okay, let's start with something niche-y this game, and then you build on it next week. So, like, you're not going to go to the Diamond 30 personnel package and put in 25 new plays.
Right.
But there's things that they already know that you can do.
Sure.
And that's what I would like to see. And I think Virginia's not going to they're not going to be prepared for it at all.
But I think the important thing is you can come up with some new formations and some, like just like you said, some new personnel, but then you still run your stuff. Like the whole thing.
You need to have some wrinkles out of it, though.
Right. Now, I get that, but 25 plays aren't wrinkles. That's a whole package. Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like you need to be able to run your stuff out of these wrinkles and then have a few things off of it. And I think they can easily do that in a week. Easily. Because like you said, Virginia's more worried about who they're starting at quarterback than they are about anything else right now, right? I mean,
right.
So yeah, I would definitely have something because you do have some dynamic playmakers at running back that you can get on the field, that can catch the football, and they can do things outside the tackle box. And if they don't do that, then I'm really scratching my head as to what they're doing.
Right.
What are you doing? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be the only thing. If all they do is just plug Lorenzo Styles in there and play more 12 personnel, it's like, you guys lack.
How is that the solution?
You lack the creativity necessary to be a dynamic offense. And Brian Kelly said it today. He's like, hey, look, Notre Dame is whatever and oh when they score more than 30 points a game. If that's not like an awareness of, then start freaking being a more dynamic offense.
Right.
You're
not going to score more than 30 in 12 and 13 personnel all day.
Right.
You're not.
Not against anybody good, not this group. And it's not even that it's, and again, when we say that, this is not a shot on George Takis or Mitchell Evans, or it's about you as a coach have to look at who are our best players.
Right.
Last year, if you have a conversation about your top 7 or 8 players, there was a few tight ends that needed to be part of that conversation.
Right.
In other years, that it's not the case. This is one of those years where it's not the case. And it's not just about those guys, but it's about you have a very dynamic backfield. You have one of the best running back groups in the country.
Exactly.
You're not using it correctly. Now, again, okay, Chris Tyree's banged up. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt there because my sources told me that it was a situation where Chris wasn't healthy. It was not a doghouse thing or anything like that. But he's back now. You said he's back now to feeling better. And even if Chris can only give you 12 to 15 snaps, be creative with those. Here's the thing. If you know Chris Tyree is limited, don't waste those snaps on having him step up and pass pro. That's a waste of snap, in my opinion. Even though he could do it, it's a waste of a snap. What I want to see them do is say, hey, if we only got Chris Tyree for 15 snaps, then we're going to darn sure make sure he touches the ball on 5, at least on 5 to 6 of those.
Yep.
Whether it's jet sweeps, screens, handoffs, whatever the case may be, they've got to start getting Chris Tyree more touches. Right. And then you can allow Logan and Kyron to get their touches in the more traditional running back things if Chris is limited. And now's the perfect. Now, a week ago, it would have been harder to do that because we can take Avery Davis off the field. I'm not taking Avery Davis off the field.
Exactly.
For that.
He's your most consistent receiver right now.
Correct.
But now you don't have a choice.
He's also your most money receiver. If it's 3rd and 5, there's only 2 people I'm looking at on 3rd and 5. It's Michael Mayer and Avery Davis. Right.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yep.
Well, Avery's not there now.
Right.
So you got to figure something else out. And so to me, that's the key is, okay, we don't have Avery. Because like when something like this happens, Vince, is an offensive, when you've lost Joe Wilkins, you've now lost Avery Davis, you've lost Lawrence Keys, you've lost so much of your depth. You almost got to take what you've done all year and you just got to be like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, that's what you got to do. Okay, fellas. When I say start from scratch, it's not okay. What plays do we want to run? We're now going to become a pin and pull team that's going to run air raid principles. That's not what I'm talking about. It's what's your overarching. Here's how we're game planning that you've been doing all year. It's gone. You got to start fresh. Okay, here's our best players. Okay, how do we best utilize our best players within the framework of play of what we do, and what are some new wrinkles that we can add? And again, it's a couple run plays here. It's a screen here. It's a couple pass plays here. It's not reinventing the wheel, but you do it, to your point, out of formations that they're not prepared for, and that's how you catch them in a leverage situation, a matchup situation, things like that. And so to me, that's going to be the key. How creative do you want to be, right? And with your personnel and how you use that personnel. And you know, if Tommy Rees does that, I'm going to lose it this weekend. I'm going to be so fired up. I'm going to be like, okay, I'm buying you all the beanies you want, man. You know what I mean? Like, I'm super fired up about it. I think I think he can. I think he's got the mind for it, but he's just got to step up and say, hey, coach, this is what we got to do, man. Right? We got stud running backs. You want, from what I'm told, his closest ally as far as like his trust on the staff in regards to play calling and game planning is Lance Taylor.
Yep.
If those two guys, Lance Taylor's the freaking running backs coach.
Right.
If those two guys can't say, hey, man, what's the best position group we have on offense? Does anyone want to tell me it's anything other than running back? It's not.
Right.
How can we use it better other than just traditional methods of swings and handoffs and some slip screens. It's 2021. You got to be more creative with how you use it. Right. And that's just a fact. And so that's what I want to see this weekend.
Agreed.
And it doesn't have to necessarily look just like what I think. Tom Reese is a smart guy. Lance is a smart guy. They may have other ideas on how to use 2-3 running backs. And it's not like if they come out this weekend and I'm like, you know what? They didn't run diamond personnel. They suck. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just giving you kind of things that pop into my head as I think about it, right? It doesn't have to look like that. As long as it's creative and it's meant to get your best players the ball and it's meant to create havoc for Virginia. And then now all of a sudden Georgia Tech and Stanford are like, oh crap. We thought we had Notre Dame figured out. Now they come up in this freaking 30 personnel and 31 personnel, and they're doing reads and they're doing all this other kind of stuff. I mean, and that's the other thing too. Everybody knows I'm, Jack Cohn starting quarterback. The first time that I'm going 30, 31 personnel on Saturday against Virginia, 12 is a quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Virginia's be like, okay, what the
heck?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, what do we do now? Holy crap. And you know what? Yep. And then I'm having throwing it too.
And I'm going to have them do a buck sweep here. Like, seriously.
Right.
Okay, you line up in diamond personnel, right? So you can kind of read it out here. You got a tailback. I'm going to have him read this way and then run speed option away. Right? You jab with that back, right? And then you can have so much fun with it. I mean,
absolutely.
And you just do it for a series. You just come out and say, hey, and you let Jack know, hey, Jack, third series of the game, we're going diamond, we're putting Tyler in the game. Okay? Just, and we're going to go fast. Now, if we get stalled, we're going to put you back in, but you're going back in that next series, right? Or it may just be 3 plays. Hey, we're doing 3 or 4 plays, whatever the case may be. Right. You can do things like that. And now Virginia's like, what the freaking heck? So then here's the thing. Virginia's going to spend that whole next defensive series, that whole next period between series.
Drawing up how they're going to defend
they're going to defend it.
Right.
And then you come back with 12 personnel and run it right down their freaking throat and take a couple play action shots, right?
Right.
I mean, or go 11 personnel and you're in a more traditional offense.
Right.
I mean, that's what good coaches do. That's what creative coaches do. I want to see Tommy Reese do that because I do believe Tommy's a smart, creative guy. I just want to see him be like, hey, dude, you're a college coach. Go have some fun this weekend, right? Go have some fun. You don't have Avery anymore to build around because you needed to build around. I mean, I'm arguing that they need to use Avery more. He's not there now. Go have some fun, right?
Yep.
Go make the Virginia coaches just be like, what the freaking heck was that, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so that's what I need to see. If they just come out in their traditional 11, 12, 21, and just run the same stuff they've been running, just, hey, Lorenzo, go. Hey, true freshman Lorenzo, go pretend you're a fifth-year senior.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yep. That's what I would like to see. So that's our talk on the Vince, you have anything to add to that? I got a little fired up there with that. So,
and I was just, if I had popcorn, I would have just been, because I was enjoying it. Because you're absolutely, I got this vision actually when you were talking about it, of you and I sitting at a table, just drawing some stuff up. Like, all right, you know what, this would be really cool to do. All right,
yeah,
like that. That is when I always had the most fun coaching. Is when you're your backs are up against it a little bit, and now it's time to be creative. Let's go have some fun with it. And you sit down and you collaborate and you put your heads together and you come up with something. That's when coaching is fun to me personally, And so that's when I was like, okay, let's go. Yeah. So I'm hoping that's, what Notre Dame does. Mm-hmm. I would honestly be surprised if it is. I fully anticipate seeing 12 and 13 personnel on a Saturday. I just make me a believer, Tommy Reese, make me a believer. That's what I will say to that, because they've got the guys to do it, and it can be so much fun to watch if they wanted to do it. So, we'll see. We'll see.
Yep. So that's that. So there's a couple other things from the press conference today that Brian Kelly talked about. He was asked a question about Kevin Austin being more mature the second half of the year.
Yes.
And I got to give Brian Kelly a lot of credit because he paused.
He did
for a second before
he really thought about what he was going to say,
because depending on the direction it could have gone, it could have been like, okay, let's rehash. And he paused and he made it about football, which I really appreciated the answer that he gave. And he talked about how, Kevin's got to learn to do little things like nutrition and all. And I
sleep and
appreciated
some other
that.
thing, yeah.
And he also talked about, he saw things against Cincinnati and Purdue that he'd never seen before, meaning big, tall, physical corners that were going to run a certain style. Because Notre Dame hasn't been that. This is the first year we've really seen Notre Dame do a lot of press at the cornerback position. And how, he's learned from those mistakes and how he's evolving as a player. And, the thing that's gone unnoticed about Kevin Austin in the last couple games, Vince, is that I actually have really been pleased by what we saw from Kevin in the couple games before the Navy game, because what we saw was like he had, what was it, was it the USC game that he had a couple drops, right? Was it the USC game? And it's kind of like, okay, here we go again, physical corners. Because it was, he dropped that. They ran a go route early and he dropped that, and then they threw him another ball later that he dropped. And it was just, but what you saw from that game is we talked about it at the time, he didn't go in the tank. Right. He was still blocking well. He ended up making a play later in the game. And even though his numbers weren't sexy in those two games, he had 3 catches for 36 yards against North Carolina. But he played that back shoulder really well. But you started to see him do some of those little things better, Vince. And so you saw, him blocking better and those kind of things. And then he obviously comes out against Navy and has a big game. Right. A money game, because it wasn't just the long touchdown. It wasn't just the 38-yard game, but then also getting open on a nice, stemming that corner, because the corner was playing inside, I believe, and he had to kind of lean him out a little bit to beat him inside on the slant. Really, he wouldn't have done that 5 games ago.
Right.
And so he still has a lot to learn, but you're seeing Kevin really try to grow his game. And I thought the way that Coach Kelly explained that maturity question, and I don't think the reporter was looking for a shot on the kid that got suspended as a freshman. I didn't take it that way. But that doesn't mean Kelly couldn't have gone that way. I really appreciated how he was like, okay, let me think about this one and how I want to answer this one.
Because he used the word maturity, and he said, maturing from the game 1 to now.
Right.
And you can just go strictly on the field. And you just kind of outlined it. Right. On the field, he has matured tremendously from game 1 to now. There's no question. And I'm sure, and we talked about the fact that, look, he's basically a first-year receiver. I mean, yes, he got some spot time as a freshman.
We disagree with that a little bit, because
and that's fine.
At worst, second-year receiver. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's learning on the go. And
didn't play. He was healthy for like 3 weeks last year. He wasn't, you know what I mean? Right. That's the other thing too. He got hurt in the summer.
That doesn't count for me.
Came back for a couple weeks, worked back into the rotation, got hurt again, and was out again for the year. So it wasn't like he just didn't play, right? He was at least still practicing and all that. I mean, he didn't play last year,
right?
To your point,
yes. So, and I'm sure that over the 4 years, he's matured off the field as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't still be a part of the program,
right?
I mean, he got suspended for a reason, and it wasn't anything on the field. So I'm sure he's matured off the field as well. Yeah. And I do appreciate the fact that Brian Kelly went the route that he did as well.
Because not bringing that up, because it's almost kind of like you got to let the kid outgrow that. If he truly has, and from everything and we've said this for 2 years, from everything I've heard for the last couple of years, Kevin has grown up a lot off the field.
Right.
Now it's about growing his game. And I appreciated that Coach Kelly didn't go to that part, and he focused on his maturity as a football player, on and off the field football player. That's what we talk about, nutrition and all that. And I appreciated that. So
yes, agreed.
Very much so. And I also appreciated the fact that it doesn't sound like they're moving Xavier Watts back to receiver. I did want to say that too.
No.
He had a couple really interesting comments about the offensive line. I was ready to hammer him, because he was asked about, the offensive line progressing, and he said that the offensive line didn't take a step back this Saturday, which I'm like, okay, I'm going to crush him for this one, because, yes, they did. But then he went on to say they didn't play great, and how they made some mistakes. But then, of course, it's always the quarterback's fault, right? The quarterbacks did this, and the receiver, other people did this. It's never the line kind of thing. But he did say, they had some mistakes and some things. It's like, but he's still just so unwilling to just, yeah, you know what? We can't have fifth-year seniors going out there committing false starts on the first play of the game. We can't have our senior captain, with snap infractions. You know what I mean? I mean, he's got to be willing to be as critical of the line as he has been of the offense. I mean, of the defense and the quarterback all season long. And that's a little bit frustrating for me. But he did then say, they got to improve and some different things. But But he also made a comment to me that floored me. They were asking about Josh Lugg, who came out of the game real late in the game. And Kelly said, yeah, he said, Jeff was really hounding me about getting him out because he was dealing with some back issues. Why does your offensive line coach need to hound you about getting a player out? Like, if that doesn't say the difference, do you think there's any chance in heck that Harry Heastand's like, hey, coach, can we please take a guy out? No.
You just do it.
And that sums up so much of what is the problem on the offensive line. You know, I mean, you got a guy that's dealing with back spasms. We've been talking about Josh Lugg's back spasms since last year.
For years. Yeah, because
you're clearly controlling that game in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
How do you not get that kid out sooner? You know, I mean, and why does your offensive line coach need to hound you about getting him out? He should just say, hey, coach,
why does he need to ask permission?
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. What does that say? That I've never heard of a scenario where position coaches have to get the head coach's permission before they take anyone other than the quarterback out of the game.
Even at the high school level, to be honest with you, like a position coach will rotate or he'll take a guy out. And maybe the head coach will be like, hey, why did you take so-and-so out? And then you give a reason. You're like, okay. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while the head coach, no, get him back in or whatever. Okay. But take him out. If you want him out, you take him out. It is your position group. You, in theory, know your guys better than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so I think that tells me more about the relationship, right? I mean, as far as the hierarchy and the operating, like the in-game operation, I guess, when it comes to what coaches are allowed to do, right? I got a big problem with that.
Could you imagine Mike Elson being like, hey, coach, I want to,
I
or
don't
Marcus
see that
Freeman, it's not happening on defense. And again, that's a big reason why for the last 3-4 years, the defense has been so much better than the offense.
Sure.
Because he hires people and he lets them freaking coach. And you hire good people, you don't have to worry about letting them coach. He made great hire of Mike Elko, great hire of Clark Lee, great hire of Marcus Freeman. Let him coach. You know what I mean? Let him coach. You need to do the same thing on offense, and that's what he hasn't done. And that's why him and Chip Long butted heads at times. That's why Brian Kelly didn't like Harry Heastand. That's one of the reasons he didn't like Harry Heastand, because Harry Heastand didn't let Brian Kelly have a say in what he was going to do. He just did it. I'm the offensive line coach. You know what I mean? And that says so much. Like I was told a story. It's a true story. I was told this by 3 different people, that there was a time last year where in one of the games early in the season where Coach Alexander was going to get a young guy on the field, right? He was going to put 2 freshmen on the field. And somebody had made a mistake, and Brian Kelly just lit him up on the sideline. And he looks at the kid he's about to put in, and he's like, I don't think it's a good idea to put you in now.
Because he didn't want to get yelled at.
Because he didn't want yelled at, right? I mean, what does that say about you want to talk about why the offense never reaches its potential? And I hear a lot of people say, well, Tommy Rees ain't the guy, and Tommy Rees. Hey, look, with all due respect, everybody knows what my opinion was of who they should have hired when Chip Long left, right? That's not a surprise to anybody. But what do you expect a 29-year-old offensive coordinator to do when he's basically given what he's been given to work with at some very important positions?
Yep.
And so that was a madden. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. And just by itself, it's not really something that's necessarily a horrible thing. But when you just add it all up, that's what frustrates me. It's not just this. It's kind of like what we talked last night about Cincinnati's resume. It's not that they lost, that they barely beat Navy. It's not that they barely beat Tulsa. It's not that they struggled against Tulane. Those things by themselves, or that they were tied 7-7 against Murray State at halftime, none of those things by themselves equal dropping Cincinnati because of right. But when you add them all up, it starts to tell a different story.
And when they're all back to back,
right?
You know what I mean? It's a trend. Right. That's what it is. 3 games in a row is a trend,
right?
So not that we're talking about that, but still,
right. So that was a little bit of a maddening.
Yeah,
maddening
absolutely.
Thing.
Absolutely. I don't like that at all.
So, last night or we talked about like the college football playoff and things like that.
Our
but
top 11.
There's a couple games that were played this weekend that have led to some decisions. And I asked a friend of mine this weekend, Dan Mullen's in trouble. I know you're a big Dan Mullen guy, and I like Coach Mullen a lot too personally, and I think he's a really good football coach, but he has not done a good job at Florida, Vince.
Which is surprising because it felt like he was doing a great job to begin with. And it's all gone south on him.
Somebody had a thing. I want to find that tweet. There was a tweet about how Florida was like really rolling. And when they lost to LSU last year, they have just never recovered from that. Remember, that was the shoe throwing incident. They had the game won.
Shoe.
And that, threw the shoe. Like,
yes.
Okay, here it is. This is from Joel Klatt.
Okay.
So in the 13 games before that incident against LSU, Florida was 12-1 in the 13 games prior. Okay, so I'm looking at it now. They, at that point in time in the season, they had one loss. They were 8-1, and their only loss was a 3-point road loss at Ole Miss. They pounded Georgia. They had won games 41-17, 44-28, 63-35, 38-17, 34-10, 31-19. After that, they lost to LSU. They lost to Alabama. They got killed by Oklahoma. And this year, they've beaten Florida Atlantic, South Florida, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. And they've lost to Alabama, Kentucky, LSU again, Georgia, and they lost this weekend to South Carolina 40-17.
It was not close.
And it wasn't that close. Florida scored last.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, like, sometimes that moment can be defined where it's like that's a program-altering thing, and how you handle it is when a coach like him fires his offensive line coach, John Hevesy. Now, let me remind you, John Hevesy and Dan Mullen were on the same staff at Bowling Green, the same staff at Utah, and the same original staff at Florida. These guys have known each other a long time. He also fired Todd Grantham, which is something he should have done 2 years ago. But when you make those kind of moves with multiple games left in the season, you're doing that to preemptively protect your job.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Yeah.
And so he's in trouble.
Heat. Yeah, no, the seat is hot down there in Gainesville. There is no, because that's not acceptable. I mean, it's not acceptable as a Florida head coach. It's not. And they're losing games that they shouldn't lose, and they're losing them in a manner that they shouldn't lose. There's too much talent down there for them to be losing like that. I mean, and like I said, and you brought up the stat, he started out great down there. Like, it was going to be a quick turnaround. I mean, all of it. And he has just lost the reins down there in Florida.
And he's making decisions that are really puzzling. And, part of it was the decision to play Anthony Richardson as the only quarterback against Georgia. And Anthony Richardson is a kid that's a really powerful runner, but he's not much of a passer right now. And to have him start his first game, like the kid went 3-8 against Florida Atlantic, 3-3 against South Florida, 1-1 against Kentucky, 4-6 against Vanderbilt, 10-19 against LSU. First time he threw more than 10 passes in the game, he threw 2 picks against LSU in a loss. And then you start him against Georgia. You start a one-dimensional quarterback, and the one dimension is running against Georgia. Like, that's one of the worst coaching decisions I've ever seen. And I just didn't expect it from Dan Mullen, someone who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And that's the side. And then when you watch him on the sideline, he's making panicky moves. And that surprises me for a guy like Dan Mullen, who's always been a super self-confident guy. So that was a really troubling thing for me, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No question.
Completely agree. That's going to be a pretty prime job that's going to be open, I think.
I think he's going to save it. The only way he loses his job, in my opinion, you tell me if you agree or disagree with this, Vince. Okay. They've got Sam, so they're 4-5 right now.
Right.
Okay. They're coming off a year in which they played for the SEC championship, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And so they played for the SEC championship. I think twice under Mullen now, or no, that was the first time. Yeah, last year was the first time. And so you can chalk it up 8-4. You lost to Bama. You lost to Oklahoma. Okay, there's greater tragedies in the world than to lose to those two teams.
That's fair.
And then you lost to a pretty good A&M team on the road. Okay, well, chalk it up. You still were SEC East champs. Beat Georgia. The fact that they're 4-5 now, they've got Samford coming up this weekend. That's a win.
It's a win.
They could play the same way they did against South Carolina and still beat Samford.
Sure.
Then they're at Missouri and home against Florida State. They've got to run the table.
They have to.
If he loses another game, even if they finish 6-6,
is Florida State at home, you said?
It's at home.
If they lose to Florida State,
that's the game
that could, over.
That's the one that could get him in trouble.
Yep,
that's Florida State team.
That's where I'm at. If he wins that game, he saves his job for another year. If he loses that game, it's game over. He's
could be.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I just the question I would have is I don't know if there's two ways to look at it. And this is about his job and some other jobs that people have talked about. May they fire this guy or that guy? And I said, I don't know if this is necessarily the season you want to be looking for a coach, because there's two schools of thought. One is like, do you really want to be battling LSU and USC for a job, and then potentially, depending on who those teams hire, Penn State? You know what I mean?
Sure.
The other option is some really good coaches are going to get gobbled up this offseason, and if you want one of them, and that guy's a commodity, you may need to make the move. Because you may say, hey, like, we really like, I don't know, let's just throw the hot name out there, Mel Tucker or James Franklin, right? One of those two guys. If that's a guy you've like kind of always had your eye on in case things don't go well, well, if you don't make that move now, that guy's going to be gone.
You're not going to get him.
So, again, I don't think that's always the best reason to make a hire, but we've seen people make worse decisions when it comes to we've seen people fire coaches for worse decisions than that.
Yeah, exactly.
The other option is like, I mean, just, hey, look, let's give him a chance, find out from him what the plan is to turn it around, like Jack Swarbrick did with Brian Kelly. What's your plan? So yeah, it's very interesting. We got a super chat here real quick from Richard Malton.
Yeah, hit it.
Golden Tate 2.0 is in the backfield. Remember, he came out of high school as a RB. I am absolutely jacked to see this offense on Saturday. He's talking about Kyron Williams.
I'm glad you're happy to see it because I'm nervous.
Well, I mean, you know what? I'm going to be with Richard. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic until they prove me wrong. I just want to be in a good mood. It's been a good weekend, great weekend. I'm in a good mood today.
Oh, I'm in a great mood. Yeah,
I'm gonna say that I'm gonna give him the thing.
That's fair.
And Kenny Moore says LSU is going after Jimbo hard. I don't think there's any chance in heck that A&M's a better job.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Texas A&M is a better job than LSU in every way imaginable, in my opinion. Especially with all the struggles that Texas is going through. I think A&M's a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
I think LSU is an overrated job. I do. It's a weird fan base. It's a group of boosters. Like, the minute you start having problems, it's like it just becomes so toxic that it's like it's impossible to do what you need to do to fix it.
Right.
And so that's where I'm hoping the Florida State boosters just shut your mouths and do whatever Mike Norvell needs you to do for one more year. Give them one more year to start because what happens is if you start running your mouths about we like this guy, that guy, this guy better turn it around, all of a sudden it becomes harder to recruit, it becomes harder to hire coaches, it becomes harder to do it because I don't want to go to that school. They're about to get fired. That's what made Mike Elko and Chip Long and Clark Lee's decision to come to Notre Dame so important because they could have been like, I don't know about that. That's not a great roster. They are 4-8. That guy's on a hot seat. I don't know if I want to put my career in, but they still made the decision. And I thought that was huge. So that was a big one. We got down here, Rob Thidoff. I'm not certain yet, but right now my USD upset special double for this coming Saturday is Baylor over Oklahoma and Washington over Oregon. Holy moly, that would be like to me, that would actually be bigger shockwaves than what we saw this weekend. Because I think a lot of people, I tried to do like the whole reverse psychology thing. I just couldn't bring myself to, because especially as I picked freaking Florida to beat Georgia the week before, I was like, I'm just going to go with the higher ranked teams.
Right.
But man, that to me, I think Baylor beating Oklahoma would be a bigger shock than either Michigan State or Wake Forest losing this weekend. And then Washington State beating Oregon would be just as big to me, Vince. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I would love every second of both of those. I don't know. I had more confidence in the two upsets this past weekend than I do in both of those. But Baylor, hey, look, Baylor's coming off a loss. They're smarting, so you know they got nothing to lose. Why not?
Could
go
be
after
dangerous.
Them? So, yeah, exactly.
And then Oregon's at home against Washington State. That would surprise me a little bit, but it is in Waco. The Oklahoma Baylor game is in Waco. So but that would be.
I would love that.
Now this weekend is a little bit different. My number one priority for this weekend is Notre Dame, because this is the last game.
This is the last hurdle.
If Brennan Armstrong plays, and Virginia's saying that he will, we'll see. I mean, he should say that now. I mean, he should tell make Notre Dame think they got to prepare for Brennan Armstrong, and then you can make your decision later, like your real decision later. But I'd make Notre Dame. I would not let Notre Dame go into this game knowing that Brennan Armstrong's not playing, even if he's not going to. But Notre Dame, you got to win this game. The offense has to be on point, all that kind of stuff. I think they'll win, but this is a dangerous team. You win this game, you're going to be 11-1. Now, we've talked about the trap game being Georgia Tech, meaning if you're not focused, they could hurt you. Notre Dame's going to be ready for Virginia. Now whether they execute or not, different story. But this is a 6-3 team that scores a ton of points. If they think he's going to play, they're going to have to be ready for it. So that's mine for this weekend, Vince. But we'll get into more of that tomorrow after the college football playoff show, and that's going to be part of a 2-show special for tomorrow. We're going to have 12:30 tomorrow. We're going to have our stacking up of the Notre Dame offense against the Virginia defense. We will then tomorrow night we'll let you know, like, obviously, hey, look, here's why you need to be a subscriber, and here's why you have to hit the notification bell. Because when we find out what time the committee is going to meet and then what time our show is, we set the show, and then you get notified that we're going to go live at specific time. Right. Okay. So that's why you need to hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell. And of course, smash the like button. We would appreciate that. So we'll do that tomorrow night. Wednesday, we'll be back to normal time. Thursday, normal time. Friday, normal time. So it's going to be a fun week, Vince. And I'm going to enjoy watching film of Virginia this week. I really like their offense. I love how they spread the ball around. It's a really fun offense to watch. I look forward to talking about that on Wednesday, the matchup of that offense against the Notre Dame defense on Wednesday. So that is it for today's show. Vince, thanks for being with us. I'm glad y'all liked the new intro music. I was really fired up about that. And I was not going to lie. I normally don't care what people think, but I care what y'all think. And I wanted to know what y'all thought about it. So I was glad to see the excitement about it. So everybody have an awesome rest of your day. Check out irishbreakdown.com. Sign up for the message board. You can see the post below. I've got I'm just going to publish it in there again. I got the link to the join thing in there. So come join us. We got some great conversation going on. And the nice thing about being on the message board is when we end here, if you've got more questions or I didn't get to a question or you want to talk more, we can do that. Just bring it to the board, baby. So anyway, everybody have a great, awesome rest of your day. For Vince, I'm Brian. We'll talk to you very, very soon.